That's good.
Ladies and gentlemen, up here on the stage we have our 5 Republican candidates from Georgia's wonderful and beautiful 12th District. First we have Mr. Rick W. Allen. Next we have State Representative Delvis Dutton. Next we have Mr. John Stone. Next we have Mrs. Diane Van. And finally, Mr. Eugene Yu. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I ask if you will please rise and join me in honoring our nation through the singing of the national anthem. Tonight's performance of the national anthem is being performed by a member of the College Republicans of East Georgia College, Ms. Tabitha Ross.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed, and the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. You may be seated. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce tonight's moderator. He serves as a member of the Statesboro City Council and is well known in our area for his media work throughout the years. Ladies and gentlemen, if you will please join me in welcoming Councilman Phil Boyd.
Figures I'd have to move that up. All right, we've got 5 candidates, so we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right to the questions. And I thought since today is the last day for sign up for Obamacare, we'll go ahead and start with this question. Polls have shown that a majority of Americans understand that Obamacare is detrimental. Would you please outline specific health care reforms? Oh wait, you know what? I'm sorry. I jumped right into the questions and I didn't even give these guys a chance to introduce themselves. I'm glad somebody said something. Anyway, we're going to start with Mr. Allen, get the candidates. You guys got 2 minutes each to introduce yourselves and make an introductory statement, and then we'll get to an Obamacare question. So, Rick Allen, we'll start with you. Go right ahead.
All right, Phil, thank you, and thank you for moderating. Greetings to all, and thank you to the Georgia GOP for putting this on. This is a great turnout. Thank you for being here. I tell you, it's exciting and fun to come together with fellow Republicans and talk about the issues, particularly as Phil mentioned, the Obamacare. You know, my wife and I have been married for 40 years and we've gone to the same church for 40 years. We've raised our 4 children in that church. And they're all happily married and gainfully employed, and we're tickled to death about that. And we've got 6 grandchildren, and we've got one on the way to be here in 2 weeks. So, I have been in the district, my family's been in the district for generations. 35 years ago, my wife and I took our savings and we started a small construction business. As I look at the nation, what has happened to this country? You know, for 2.5 centuries, we were the envy of the world. Are we not smart enough? Do we not work hard enough? I don't think so. We got a leadership problem in Washington. Those people there are self-serving, and all they do is work on their re-election campaigns. And this country, in the meantime, is going off the cliff. The thing we have to do in Washington is bring common sense business experience. We must bring budgeting expertise. You know, I've worked in my community the last 35 years, and we can solve our problems in our community, but we can't do it until we stop watching it. That's why I'm running for Congress, and thank you for allowing me to be here.
Representative Dunn.
Thank you, Phil. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. A lot of friendly faces, some new faces. It's good to be home. For many of you that are not aware, I grew up in Glenville and came over here in '96 to attend Georgia Southern, working at UPS across the street, and met my wife. And at age 22, while going to Southern and working at UPS, I started a well drilling company, and have been doing that ever since. And about the time of 2010, I was having difficulty watching the evening news or watching Fox News without my blood pressure going through the roof. And I found myself, when we went through revival at Trinity Baptist, realizing that I was unwilling to do what I expected others to be doing. And I answered that call after about a 28-day journey, and have been in Atlanta serving in that capacity as state representative for the last 4 years. And we have constantly, from the day I got elected, been fighting Obamacare and any implementation on the state level. And we've been successful in that. But we have to take that to DC, and we have to address trying to get that repealed in every effort. Also been trying to push every option that we had to get Congress to pass a balanced budget amendment to where we can get the debt under control and this out of control spending. And I truly believe that I'm in this race because I have a proven record that matched up against Barrow in November will give us that advantage to defeat him in November with a clear, proven, constitutional, conservative record that I think if you take the time to check it out, you'll see who I've been for 4 years and who I'll continue to be in DC. Thank you.
John Stone.
I'm John Stone. You can read my full bio on our website. I won't waste a lot of time talking about that tonight. What I will mention is that a great saying of Benjamin Franklin, that experience is a good teacher, but a fool can learn with no other. Now, I think sometimes as Republicans, we can't even learn with experience. And what has really damaged us in this race, what's ridiculous is that right now we shouldn't be having this debate. We should have a Republican representative already in office. But because we blew the debate issue in the last election in 2012 by having bad political consultants tell our nominee not to debate John Barrow, we sit here today with 5 people on stage. And we've already started down that same broken road again right now by the fact this debate should have been last year. We had Georgia Southern and the Georgia Southern newspaper, the Statesboro Herald, agreeing to host our debate last October, and yet the other candidate on the stage, Rick Allen, would not agree to debates. We had a challenge for 4 televised debates, which would have given us the edge that we needed in this race to put our message out in front of the media. And instead, we're sitting here 28 days away from the election, having the first debate, with the final debate scheduled after a lot of folks have already voted. That's unacceptable. It's going right back into the same failed game plan that we had before of failing to debate. I debated John Barrow in 5 televised debates in 2008, when I was your nominee in the old Republican district. And we have to get aggressive and go after that again and quit ducking the issues. Now, I realize I'm not being pleasant with these comments, but these comments need to be made. We have to do 2 things. We have to win back our seat from John Barrow, but we also have to win back our party from the establishment Republicans that have hijacked it in Washington, D.C. I don't know how many of you noticed last Friday, they had a voice vote on raising federal spending and raising the deficit on the floor, in which your Republican members were not allowed to even put their name on it. We have to have a new party, and I've pledged to provide that with new leadership if I'm your next congressman. Thank you.
Diane Vaughn.
Diane Van.
Van,
Like a moving van. I live in Macon. I moved to Georgia 30 years ago with my husband. He took a job as a traveling representative for SELA, now known artist. He's had 30 Georgia as his territory. I understand that this job is a traveling job, and believe me, being out on the road, I really appreciate all the time my husband has spent there driving. I live in Macon. I was a nurse working at Macon State College when Obama was running for office, and I listened to him and I thought, why would the Democratic Party put forward this man as candidate? Sounded like a man who, I was in East Berlin when I was stationed in Germany back in the 70s and when the High Iron Curtain. And Obama sounded like my tour guide on that tour bus. And I thought, why would the Democratic Party put this man up for president? So I actually left my job. I had to leave my job to run. I ran in the 2010 8th District election. Austin Scott won. He went on and was successful against Jim Marshall. And he's done a decent job since. When it comes to running for Congress, they want an address in Georgia, or at least they promise you will move to Georgia. They don't ask for a social security card. They don't ask for a driver's license. They don't ask for a birth certificate. And you just really have to prove that you're a serious candidate, which I had done in 2010. So the fact that Obama was reelected in 2012, I wanted to go back to my nursing career, but I could not face seeing Obamacare implemented. I could not pretend that was going to be acceptable or work out. So I stayed away from the nursing profession and just stayed constant at working at Republican activities. The fact that John Barrow is still in office at this point in time, 8 years duration, no changes made as far as really deepening the harbors it should be in Savannah. None of the improvements that you would expect for this area that should have been made. What's going on? We need a Republican in that office. Thank you.
Eugene Yu.
I always asking to myself, am I doing the right thing at the right time, in the right place, in the right reason? Good evening, my fellow Georgian and Republican, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eugene Yu. I'm running for 12th District, U.S. Congress. teenager boy came from the Korea to America, Augusta, Georgia, 42 years ago. Now I'm standing in front of you. I'm running for U.S. Congress. This is what I call pure American dream. This dream is real. I believe in this nation. We live in a great nation. We owe it to our children, their children to preserve this great nation. In Washington, people, they completely forgot about the common sense. They're out of control. They need a new solution, new blood, new idea. Let me explain to you about myself, who I am. My wife, Joni, and I, we married 35 years. I worked at the local factory at the midnight shift assembly line making $2 an hour when I was a 10th grader in high school. In the weekend, I was working the Piggly Wiggly as a stock boy and the bag boy. And also at the same time, I worked as the volunteer firefighter. I did the entire my high school year. And I served U.S. Army. Later, I served as the deputy sheriff of Richmond County, and I was doing for business for the last 20 years for the refurbishing military vehicles. I know that in Washington, they need somebody know how about the business sense, common sense. Vote for you, Thank you.
All right, now we'll move to the question section of the debates. Each candidate will have 90 seconds for their answers. And let me just remind you that when Lawton holds up the yellow card there, that's going to give you 20 seconds. And we are going to hold you pretty tight to the 90 seconds because we've got 5 candidates and we want to get as many answers in as we can. All right, here we go. We're going to start this one with Representative Dutton. Polls have showed that the majority of Americans understand that Obamacare is detrimental. Will you please outline specific health care reforms you would make if elected to Congress?
Well, first of all, we've got to get rid of Obamacare. We have to get government control out of our personal health care, period. When I was elected in Atlanta as a freshman, the first thing I was hit with was implementation of the exchanges. And we had overwhelming majority of the Republican Party thinking that we had to do this because if we didn't, they would. And what I found was a committed minority with truth on their side can affect anything. And we were able to keep that from happening. And we actually ended up with a lot of Democrat support because we won them over with the aspect, do you want anyone having control of your personal health care right? Do you want Republicans having your control? And they said no. So what we've got to do in DC is got to go there, get government out of the way in our personal private health care rights and put it back into the world of the private sector and allow for the innovation, independent doctors, the innovation in the medical profession instead of a government box that all of us have to live in. So the first thing we have to do is get rid of Obamacare in that step before we can do anything else. Thank you.
John Stone.
Okay, first off, I apologize if I continue to get shorter the whole time you're watching. I got a defective chair here in the middle. I noticed I was sitting down level with Diane and Elvis, and all of a sudden I was looking up like I was a kid in the grocery store. So y'all pardon me if I keep slouching down. I can't think I'm slouching, but I don't feel like it.
My chair is awesome.
My leg is hanging in the air. That's why I stand up.
John Stone's going to blame that on me too.
That's right. Sure.
Yeah, my name's going to come up again. I meant to tell you I fixed your chair before you came in here.
Oh, now we have a confession. So, on to the issue of health care. What we have to do, we have to repeal Obamacare, but this is a classic example of lack of leadership in Washington that we have right now with our current leadership team. You can't just be against everything Obama and the Democrats are doing. You have to be for something positive, some true conservative alternative to what they're doing in terms of health care reform, and we haven't had that. As a matter of fact, we've had leadership that said, let's not introduce anything Let's just let it be against Obamacare. So suddenly we have Obamacare is going into effect. We need comprehensive, conservative, free market health care reform that gets people excited. There's a way to do it specifically, and that is by repealing Obamacare with a new bill that opens up the congressional health care plan to open access to all Americans. If it's good enough for John Barrow, it's good enough for us. This is a simple way to do it. It opens it up. It guarantees community rating, guaranteed issue, which means you can get coverage regardless of pre-existing condition at an affordable price under the same plan that John Barrow has by paying your own premium. This doesn't affect any private sector plan. There are no mandates on anyone, on employers or individuals. It opens it up, it solves the problem, and it gives people something positive to be for without costing our government anything. It's a simple solution that's already been proposed at the state level by the National Association of Insurance Commissioners. As far as state high-risk plans, we can simply expand that, open it up, and give people something dynamic to be for. This is the kind of leadership that we have to have and why we need new leadership. Thank you.
Diane Van.
Well, when Cuba was taken over by Castro, a person that was affected told me that he changed health care. When Hitler took over Germany, he took over health care. So Obamacare doesn't surprise me at all. In the event, I met a man in Douglas. He said that he had a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan that changed a little bit after the deadline. His wife got a new Blue Cross Blue Shield card, went to the doctor's office and was told she couldn't get treatment unless she paid for it herself. That card wouldn't cover it. His premium for himself and his wife and 2 children went up $1,000 a month. He knows of somebody that went up $1,700 a month, and he explained to everybody will be affected December 1st. As a healthcare provider, I know that you don't hire IRS agents if you want better care. The healthcare world has a lot of problems within itself. It's physician, heal yourself. But in the event of third-party payment has separated people from getting better prices in healthcare. We have monopolies at the hospital level that need to be broken up. We need some active recruitment of good plans, and I would support something at the federal level that was for catastrophe insurance for everybody provided through the government. But other than that, I believe that Obamacare can be gutted. I believe in the free market system. I believe we have a commodity there that everybody wants, and it will work out. We can take the government out of it.
Eugene, you.
We all know this Obamacare is a terrible plan. The first time in the politics, as you know, I'm entering the first time in politics, I give the Obamacare, if I give the report card, I give the F. You can interpret whatever you want. Now, the insurance affordable care, that is almost 20% of our GDP. That magnitude of that kind of amount of money, but yet, folks in Washington, that's passive. Let's look at what's in it. That's kind of folks we running our nation. We must repeal this Obamacare. We must come up with a very comprehensive new health care law. Just we have Tom Price and our congressman put out a new bill, the medical bill, such as stop a third-party payer system that the insurance company across the state line. Let's reform the toll system so that the doctor can do business that much easier and cheaper way. So we must repeal this Obamacare. Thank you.
And Rick Allen.
Well, we're going to be unanimous on the repealing of Obamacare, I can assure you. Somebody asked me, what's the first bill you'll introduce, and that would be it. Yeah, there are a lot of problems with health care. The one thing that I don't understand is why do we send $1 to Washington and we get maybe 20, 25 cents back with all these strings attached? Is that the way to do health care, folks? It's the most inefficient way to do health care. You know, the states can compete for business. They compete for manufacturing. Why don't we put our states in a competition with healthcare? Why don't Georgia work to have the healthiest people in the country? Why don't we say, why don't you move to Georgia? We got the healthiest folks, we've got the best health care, we've got the most efficient health care in the United States right here in Georgia. I tell you, I was talking to some folks out in Texas. They've got it figured out there. In fact, they've passed a lot of tort reform. They got every insurance company in business playing in Texas right now. And that's the kind of leadership we need at the state level in Georgia to get the businesses in here so we can get these premiums down. Y'all, competition is what brings down costs. Right now, in this nation, we pay twice as much on health care as anywhere in the world. The only bill I've seen right now in Washington is Tom Price's bill. But we got to get this out of Washington. We got to get back, like I said, to our communities. And our communities and our states will solve this problem. And it will compete with California and New York. They can do what they want to up there. But we will have an efficient system here. Thank you.
All right, we'll start this round of questions with John Stone. John, many of the citizens in the 12th District have family ties to the military. Where would you draw the line for military intervention in the Ukraine?
So I get up to the right height to answer the question. I would not have the U.S. Intervene militarily in the Ukraine. We've got to stop using our military forces as the world's policemen. It absolutely has to end at some point. Right now, we can certainly exert what pressure we can with sanctions. We can work with our allies, but no, we should not be sending troops to the Ukraine. We shouldn't send them to half the places we've been sending them. It's time to start keeping our folks home, lowering that up-tempo rate, and if we need to deploy troops somewhere, we've got a great place on our southern border where we need some security there before we secure other people's borders. We cannot, with the budget challenges that we have, with the money restraints we currently have on our Department of Defense, we cannot continue being the world's policeman. We have to start spending the money at home, securing ourselves, and taking care of our military families. If we put somebody in harm's way, it better be to defend this country and not another. Thank you.
Ms. Van?
Obama, I'm afraid I cannot trust Obama as commander-in-chief. I was in the military when Jimmy Carter was president. That was tough enough. If I was in the military now, I'd probably have to get out. But intervention in the Ukraine, again, putting our soldiers over there to fight, no way. Not under Obama's leadership. I'm sorry. We need to really, really focus on our military. They're being treated very shabbily. We need to reinstate some things they've lost during this administration and look to their safety and safekeeping. Thank you.
You know, I worked one in the military when President Jimmy Carter, I was in the military when President Jimmy Carter was.
When President Obama refused our military, guess what? Russia invaded, tried attacking Ukraine. We must keep our military strong. Just like I told you from the very beginning, common sense. If you're strong enough, nobody even dare they're messing with you. The country, the person is no different. Minute we start getting smaller and smaller, guess what? Everybody's starting slapping, kicking here and there. However, no, I'm against it, sending our troops to the Ukraine. However, we need independent energy. We need to drill more oil. We need to start on the Keystone Pipe, so we start to produce more oil, so we don't have to depend on oil to oversee. That hurts the Russians, their pocket money. That's the only way we can get it back to the Russia the way they try to do Ukraine. So, my point, we want stay where we at. We need a much more stronger military and for our national security. And thank you.
We've got the greatest military in the history of civilization. And my hat's off to our soldiers, our airmen, Navy, and Marine Corps, and our Coast Guard, done properly to defend our borders. And we have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of good soldiers and folks who are wounded to go to other areas. And frankly, those remain rogue nations, and we can't seem to convince them otherwise. So we must fund our military, and we must grow this economy and grow jobs, or it's going to be difficult dealing with our enemies out there.
Representative Dudley.
Yes, sir. First, I'll say we're in a no-win situation with the situation that's going on in Ukraine because of the lack of leadership we have in the White House. Our military does not even know what to expect out of the White House. So, no, we cannot invest anything into this because we don't have a leg to stand on. Any action we take right now because of the inaction that we've seen over the course of this administration. But I'll echo what these gentlemen have said and what Ms. Diana said, that we have the greatest military in world history. And along with the border comment, we have the weakest border in the world. But the concern is that we're not giving a consistent example to our military forces of what to expect from the leadership in this country. And we're not fulfilling the promises that we make to the military and to the retirees out of the military. So I think first and foremost, the most important thing we have to do is fulfill the promises that we make, no matter what that costs us. And be careful of what we do promise. But as far as Ukraine goes, we're in deep trouble in any situation as far as foreign policy with the current administration that we have and the lack of integrity and consistency out of it. Thank you.
We'll start this round of questions with Diane Van. Diane, what changes would you make to the government in order to improve our economy, and or what government regulations would you eliminate so private business can increase industry production and employ more workers?
I think improving our economy is almost impossible with the current leadership, particularly on the Democratic side. But in the event, I would make an effort to follow through with the plans for the deepening of the Savannah Harbor, for changing the interchange in Macon. I-16 and I-75 were left unchanged and dropped. I do fear that Obama's doing the same thing here that LBJ did in the 60s to Brooklyn Air Force Base in Mobile, Alabama. They didn't vote for him, and so he arranged that facility closed. I think that there are so many things that would improve our economy. In the event, we need to have the Keystone Pipeline, without a doubt. And we need to open up, remove a lot of regulations that Obama's laws have been placing on in effect that we don't even know about. The whole idea of our economy getting better is really lost. I've examined the Communist Manifesto, which I believe that Obama's following, he and his czars, and middle class, destruction of the middle class is what it's all about. And ruining an economy, that's what it's all about. It boils down to destruction of the middle class. If you need a book about it, get a copy from me before you leave.
Eugene, you.
First and foremost, we must repeal the Obamacare. And we must tell the government they need to stay out of our private sector. That free market dealing with. My 20-year business, the government has so much rules and regulations. On the top of that, EPA. government has so much rules and regulations that a small business like you and I, we just cannot survive under this circumstance. So again, we must repeal the Obamacare. That is, again, 20% of our GDP. We must reduce that, repeal it, so most business can freely hire more people with a free market. And reduce the tax for the small business, helping the farmer. The government, instead of they tell what you cannot do, the government should, what can we help you to do better doing the business with the domestically or internationally. Thank you.
I've had the privilege over the last 35 years to grow this economy and to employ hundreds and hundreds of people. Like I said, that's a real privilege to help folks, which I love to do, provide for their families, and to bless other folks. You know, this economy, I've been through 5 recessions. This has been difficult. 92 was the most difficult recession we went through. We have a major client that went bankrupt on us. Owed us $1 million. You know, we could have thrown in the towel, but we didn't do it. Because I had 70 folks depending on me. And we got through it. Now, I will say that was the beginning of my real prayer life, those 2 years, in trying to get that money collected and get our company. In fact, we've been operating 35 years and we've only had 1 death a year, and that was in 1992. How do you grow the economy? Well, I'll tell you what hurts our business. One is the regulatory environment. Obviously, we got to get our banks lending. You know, if you go to make a loan today, it's almost impossible. All the regulatory, and only 40% of Dodd-Frank has been implemented. For crying out loud, it's extremely difficult. Until our banks are lending, y'all, the economy is going to be difficult. In fact, our community banks are, you know, they need help. But that's how you grow the economy, is deregulate and get money out there in capital, and we'll do it.
Representative Doug.
I'll say I think everyone on this panel knows what it's going to take, and that is to get the government out of the way and to get back to the foundation that founded this country. Government has never created any jobs. With all the regulations that we're facing, I think to your point, anyone that ever starts a business has a very good chance of having a close relationship with Christ, but we know what the problem is. The question is, will any of us actually do that after we're elected? And I'll tell you that if we'll get back to where this country founded, to the Constitution, and hold to those principles, if we'll take care of that, the foundation, the rest will work itself out. And that'll be reducing these regulations that we're seeing, whether it's EPA, whether it's, you know, Dodd-Frank that you're referring to. Yes, we're seeing government control in education, we're seeing government control in healthcare, and as soon as we lose the private sector, we're in trouble. We've got 2 generations right now, my age and younger, that believe that government is the salvation in this country. And my 2 children, if they grow up thinking that same thing, we're done. We will not see the country that we grew up in. So we have to get back to that foundation, and the rest will take care of itself. Thank you.
John Stone.
First thing I do is probably put some kind of import restrictions on imported office chairs. The number 1 problem we've got with our economy right now is the federal government. You look at just about every major issue that we face in our economy, and you root it right back to federal action interfering in the private sector. Mr. Yu, you're right, that unless we've got to repeal Obamacare, if we don't do that, we've got a ticking time bomb that's already going off that's going to destroy jobs. drive the cost of health care through the roof, take money out of the economy. That's got to go. But also, you look at the major problems we've had. The housing financial crisis was caused by the federal government interfering in the private sector housing market, distorting prices and driving us into the recession that we had. You look at our problems with energy, the federal government standing in the way with the Keystone Pipeline decision, with all of the restrictions on building new reactors, new power plants, new refineries. If we simply start getting the federal government out of the way, the jobs will come. There's some innovative ways coming up in Washington to do that, but one of the ways that you may have heard of is an act called the REINS Act. And what the REINS Act would do to put the brakes on these regulations is require that any new major regulation that was promulgated by any federal agency would have to be approved by both the House and the Senate before it could go into effect. We would end this storm of regulations that we have. To get that, we got to have new leadership in the House and new leadership in the Senate that's willing to stand up and fight and push that through and pass it. We have to stop the regulations. We have to build our economy, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk about this a little more. Thank you.
All right, now, Lawton, correct me if I'm wrong, but all these questions were submitted to the Bullitt County GOP, and then the board kind of picked the questions from the questions that were submitted. Is that right? Depending on frequency and those types of things. So there we go. There's our disclaimer for where the questions came from. So I didn't write all these questions, just so you know. That being said, here we go. Social and moral issues. Recently, the lawmakers in Atlanta were debating a medical marijuana bill. Well, in Congress, how do you propose to protect states' rights in general and as it regards medical marijuana? And we'll start with Eugene Yu on this question.
Marijuana. As a former deputy sheriff, that's a good question. If I'm not mistaken, we just passed the Georgia state to pass the law. I will support that. Only I support Georgia state law. And if that marijuana only can use for the laboratory or whatever the medical, that's only if I give any tolerance. We cannot try to be like a California, or we cannot be like a Colorado. We are Georgian. I strongly support our state of Georgia just passed a law that only the marijuana only used for medical use. Only. That's my state. Thank you very much.
Recount.
Well, we have to deal with this in our business. Obviously, we're a drug-free workplace, and there's a reason for that, because at a time when these drugs became popular, our workers' comp rates went up, our accident rates went up, and we, in coordination with our insurance company, began a drug-free workplace. Now, how do you deal with marijuana in the workplace? As I understand it, alcohol's out of your system in about 3 to 4 hours. Marijuana, it's sometimes a week, maybe 2 weeks. I don't know how in the world you would test for, how would you know whether someone had drugs that morning or even at lunch versus a week ago? So in states that have approved this, I don't know what it's going to do to their workforce. And we already have, like I said, 92 million people sitting at home. I talked to the law enforcement officials, and I've talked to them all over the district. Their number one problem are drugs. And it typically starts with marijuana and then moves into cocaine and then meth. It's a problem. It's a problem for our country, and it's going to be a real problem for the business community in the future. And we're going to have to deal with it. And the only way I know to deal with it is to be drug-free.
Representative Dunn.
Phil, what was before the legislature this year was cannabis oil that's taken from marijuana. And what it was used for was for children that had a seizure problem. And we looked at that, and we looked at all the research that was done on it, and granted we need a little more on that, but where we ultimately ended up was never should we allow marijuana to be an issue on a referendum or any other form in this state. This was actually cannabis oil that was used from a specific blend that they grow in a laboratory that does not have the effect of normal marijuana. So it was only for that oil. And to answer your question about the state's rights or the state's sovereign rights, how to protect that and allow us to do what we feel is right for our state, we have to have leadership in D.C. that are focused on strengthening that sovereign right for the state of Georgia. And what I would love to see in this role is, and push for a committee in the House and the Senate for federalism, and discuss with congressional testimony in our state legislature anything that affects our sovereign right here in Georgia, with specific issues just like what you're referring to, and many others, Obamacare being one of them. So, you know, it's a very concerning issue, but we have to stick to the details of it and know exactly what we're dealing with. Thank you.
So,
Marijuana is illegal under federal law. Now, the reason we're having this discussion and this question is we have an administration that unilaterally refuses to enforce not just this law, but laws across the board. If we need to reform our marijuana laws, our laws on controlled substances, that's something for Congress to debate and determine. And if we want to make marijuana legal, then let Congress have that vote. But what we have now is federal law says that it is illegal, and the administration refuses to enforce the law in California, Colorado, and these other states that have it. This is similar to what we're experiencing with the immigration issue and the administration's decision on prosecutorial discretion that we'll just choose not to enforce our immigration law, we'll choose not to enforce our drug laws, we'll choose which laws we will and won't enforce. If we allow this to continue, it goes far beyond the issue of drugs and immigration. It means we have a dictatorship in this country. We were set up with a system of checks and balances to prevent that from ever happening by having a House and a Senate that passed the laws with an administration responsible for administering. If our House and Senate won't stand up and fight on these lines, we've lost our republic and we've lost our representative sense of government. Right now, we have got to have leadership that will stand up and fight on these issues. I don't know where you are on the issue of legalization of marijuana, but it's a federal legal issue that needs to be determined by Congress, not ignored. To do that, we've got to have leadership that will stand up and fight this administration for our constitutional rights.
Diane?
Well, marijuana is a breakthrough drug. We know that. Leads to methamphetamine and other drugs and misuse. And what I find with the children is they drop out of school, they can't find a job, and they're bored, and they go into drugs. The medical marijuana was a different case, though. It's a special case. It is an oil. It's drunk. It's not smoked. And it was a treatment, or is a treatment, that's been successful with children having continuous seizures that weren't controlled by anything else. I would support medical marijuana for its legal use. That's my view.
All right. All right, we're getting close to the end of the debate here. On this particular set of questions, I'm going to start with Rick Allen. Now, these are just quick, short answer or yes or no questions. So please, I modified them just a little bit so we're not beating you guys up too bad. But we've got 4 questions here, real quick, so we'll just start with Rick. Yes or no, or it's a number, or it's maybe even a multiple choice, so pretty easy. Here we go. Rick, do you believe in term limits, and how many 2-year terms do you plan to serve? So do you believe in term limits, and how many 2-year terms do you plan to serve?
I believe in term limits, and I plan to serve no more than 4 terms, 8 years.
Representative Dunn?
I believe in term limits if we study what we actually are impacting by looking at a very broad view when you see what's happened in Florida and Colorado where they've done that. So to answer that question, I plan to, right now I'm running for 2 years. And that's all I can tell you.
2 at a time, okay. There we go. Keep them short.
Served 2 terms in Atlanta.
John, term
Yes.
limits and how many?
Yes, I believe in term limits, 3.
Diane?
Term limits, yes. 6 years total consecutive. If somebody takes a break and goes back to the real world and then comes back to Congress, I think that's all right.
Eugene?
Yes, I also believe the term limit.
And how many would you serve if elected?
Each term, if I did a good job, then my folks will vote for me.
1 at a time, I got you.
If I don't do bad, if I don't do a good job, I know you folks are gonna put me out, right?
All right. Yeah, yes or no, do you see yourself as a candidate for higher office? Yes or no? And we'll start that one with Dallas. Sorry.
For higher office?
Mm-hmm.
No, sir.
John?
You mean past the House of Representatives?
That's correct.
No.
Diane?
Too old? No.
Eugene?
Focus on this Congress.
And Rick?
No.
All right, guys, we're going to start this one with John. What is the biggest threat to our country, in your opinion? National debt, terrorism, immigration, or a crumbling infrastructure? John?
Yes.
Yes.
A big one anyway.
All of them are a huge threat, and the biggest threat we have is our ability to fight any one of those when we have an administration that don't abide by the law.
All right, Diane, national debt, terrorism, immigration, or crumbling infrastructure?
National debt.
There you go. Eugene?
National debt.
Rick?
National debt.
And Dallas?
All the above. But yes, I will agree that the lack of focus on where this country was founded and the national debt is going to collapse this country.
All right. And last quickie question here. How many days, and we'll start this one with Diane, how many days per month do you plan on being in the district and meeting with constituents? Pick a number, please. No descriptions. Thank you.
At least 15.
Eugene?
Your question is?
How many days a month do you plan to be in the district and meeting with constituents?
365 days and 24 hours a day. Anytime you call, I will be there.
I think there's a song with that title. Rick?
Well, when I'm not in session up there trying to keep those folks from taking everything away from us, I'm going to be in this district talking to you to find out what is happening to you and how I can help you.
And Dallas?
Well, I've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, so every Thursday evening I'll be on a trip back home, and I'll be back up there on Mondays. And every 2 weeks there's a break for a week, so I'll be here very regularly.
And John?
Whenever Congress is not actually in session, I will be back in the district, primarily in our main new district office in Statesboro.
By the way, you can also judge the candidates on their ability to follow the rules. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, they didn't take the SAT test, did they?
I'm just saying there are some rules up in Congress, so you can use that as well as a way to distinguish. Speaking of distinguishing, we got one more long form question. We're going to start with Eugene down there, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. Eugene, what is your main strategy for defeating John Barrow? How are you different? How do you stand out from your Republican primary competitors?
Well, you seem different.
Look at me, I'm different. I've been here all along, the Republican Party, that want to change their image. They want to connect with all the other folks. Well, here I am. Let me see if there is really the Republican Party looking for a person, candidate like me. If you keep sending same type of people, guess what? We keep losing. I can able to connect every person in my district. I come from nothing. I was not born in the silver spoon in my mouth. I came to America with a $29 in my pocket. I would tell them that this is look at me,
pure American role model of American dream. If I can do, you can do. You will know I will reach out Democrat side or whatever independent side, I will grab their vote. Then I will bring you the 12th district from John Barrow once for all. You can count on me. I'm the only one can do it.
I was just checking. Rick Allen. Again, let me repeat the question. What's your main strategy for defeating John Barrow? How are you different? How do you stand out from your primary competitors?
Well, we've had folks up here talk about their great leadership abilities. Well, I'll tell you, I've been involved in a lot of things. And I'll tell you this, I've never been able to get anything done unless everybody was unified and had the same vision, the same goal. Our party is very fractured. It's being divided. It's being divided by people on this panel up here. If we don't get our party and our act together, folks, this country is going to go off the cliff. I'm going to unite this effort. I'm going to get our Republicans to stay home, and we're going to beat John Barrow. You want me to keep talking, Bill?
Well, you know, I don't know. Does he still have a couple seconds left? Representative Dutton.
Thank you. What sets me apart is I'm 36 years old. I never aspired to be an elected official. I'm just doing what I'm convicted to do and following and being obedient to that call. And I've got a record of 4 years in Atlanta serving in the capacity of state representative that has a proven constitutional conservative record that anyone can check out. And I truly believe taking that record and matching it up as a contrast to the representation that we have will give us the victory we need in November. So I ask each and every one of you to take the time to research, go to the state website and look at any legislation that I've ever co-sponsored or authored, and then look at my voting record. But I think that the fact that I'm standing here as a daddy and 36 years old and willing to fight for my country and for what I believe is right, and to stick to that no matter what the cost politically, I think gives me the edge in November to give this district something they can believe in other than what we've had for the last several years. Thank you.
John Snow.
Before we can beat John Barrow, we have to take our party back. I take exception to the comments about dividing this party. Let me tell you what dividing this party is about. That's about the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives going to Amelia Island this coming weekend to meet with folks to raise money at $5,000 a head to defeat conservative Tea Party candidates nationwide. That's dividing the party, and that we can't stand. We've got to have new, exciting, dynamic, unapologetic conservative leadership in this Republican Party. Back in September, I became the first House candidate in the nation to publicly pledge to vote for all new leadership if I'm your new congressman. And we can't have new leadership that simply beats the folks that are there now. We don't need to win this Civil War. We need to end it with new leadership that will draw this party together where we start functioning again with positive conservative ideals. We have to have that if we hope to win this country back and if we hope to win this seat back. In this seat, you can't beat John Barrow by running from debates. I debated him 5 times in 2008. When I announced my candidacy this year, I challenged him to 6 debates immediately starting the end of this primary if I'm your nominee. And we have to fight him on the issues. We can't fight him on generalities. If you look at what John Barrow's introduced in Congress in 10 years, it's about this size. He's very, very weak on the issues. He's very, very strong on general PR. We have to beat him on the issues in debate after debate after debate, and I'm the only one that can beat John Barrow. Thank you.
As I go around, I ask, why did people vote for with John Barrow when they tell me there was a commercial that he did holding his grandfather's guns, swearing he'd never give it up, and that he was endorsed by the NRA. Well, of course, they also endorsed Harry Reid. And John Barrow's on the wrong side. I think he's a good person, I'm sure. He has a wonderful website. I get good comments about him wherever I go. And people look sheepishly, when I say, well, then why is he getting elected? They kind of look sheepishly at me without an explanation. I think this is the time that they will realize that they have been supporting the wrong party. I believe that. I believe any one of us is supporting the right party. And I think any one of us can make the point that John Barrow should be replaced. Thank you.
All right, before we get to closing statements, let's give a hand to all the candidates. When lights come on and you're sitting up here on stage, even when you have a printout, it's hard to get it out correctly sometimes. So give it, again, give them props for being up here. So. Now, Lawton, if I'm not mistaken, the date of the primary is May 20th. May 20th, and then will there be 3 weeks of early voting before that? It's going to be 3 weeks of early voting. April 28th. So our April 28th early voting will start at the Bullitt County Courthouse, and then May 20th is the primary. So we're going to get to closing statements here. Candidates each have 90 seconds. Again, Lawton is going to keep time. So again, we'll start at this end of the table. Rick, 90 seconds, go right ahead.
Well, it's been great to be with you tonight. Like I said, I love to debate the issues, and I'm going to look forward to debating John Barrow. You know, John Stone has been in Washington for 20 years, and it sounds like he just came, I mean, he's never been there. I don't understand exactly where he's coming from in that respect, but he's been up there. And that's the reason I'm going to Washington, because what's been in Washington the last 20 years, let me just tell you this, since Barrow was elected to the United States Congress, when he was elected, we were spending $2.3 trillion a year. We spent $3.7 trillion last year. We took in $2.8 trillion last year. Folks, we don't have a revenue problem. We've got a spending problem. And what I want to ask John Boehner, Eric Cantor, and the rest of them is, why haven't you put a stop to this? But you know what? Boehner and Cantor are not going to be on that ticket in November. John Barrow is. That's who I'm focused on, and that's who I'm going to be. And then I'll deal with Boehner and Cantor and the rest of those folks up there. Because let me tell you, I have lived in this district and worked in this district for a long time. I've worked in this community a long time. I have a proven experience to take what I know to Washington and try to solve those problems. Somebody said the other day, they said, you know what, you're a solution looking for a problem. Folks, all this rhetoric you're hearing is nothing more than more rhetoric. Let's send somebody to Washington that has truly solved problems all of my life. Thank
you. Representative Delvis Dutton.
Thank you all again for coming. I never dreamed that I'd be on this stage. Never expected to be an elected official in my life. In the state legislature for years. And a consistency that could win over the hearts and minds of people that served with me in that capacity to affect a lot of things that people said couldn't be done. So I ask you to pray for each one of us, lift our name up specifically, and follow whatever conviction that is, whether that's helping or lifting a hand in this capacity. Because I'm telling you, we have to get engaged, and we have to come together, and we have to be this change to get back to where we started. to get back to that foundation. So thank y'all for coming tonight, and please, share as much as you can about this process with everyone you know. Check out our website, dallasdutton.com. Go to the social media sites that we have, and go to the state website and see the history. The last 4 years that I've been a part of in Atlanta. Thank you.
John Stone.
John Barrow's name will not appear on this election ballot. It's going to be one of the 5 up here. This is your choice in this election, not John Barrow. It's who you want your Republican nominee to be, what they stand for, and how they will commit to perform in office. When I first went up to Washington in 1994 as a staffer with former Congressman Charlie Norwood, that followed up with our former congressman from this district, Max Burns, earlier, I was looking for a lot of the same things you were, things that as I travel around the 19 counties of this district that people say I'm depressed about, because I've been supporting conservative Republicans year after year, and yet things seem to get worse and worse. The budget situation gets worse. The national economic climate gets worse. How come if I keep helping Republicans voting, things don't change? They don't change because of the things that happened last week with that voice vote to raise spending and raise the deficit. With the vote earlier this year, the total cave-in by our party to raise spending, raise taxes, and cave on every issue. If we don't have that new leadership, if we don't become a new party, it doesn't matter whether we win this seat back or not. If we have that same leadership stay there, the same things are going to keep going on. You'll elect a new member, maybe it is a Republican this time, but nothing will change. We have to have a new party. This election, this primary, is about the heart and soul of the Republican Party and our conservative movement. Are we going to stand up for the Constitution again? Are we going to elect leaders that will fight the socialist attacks on our Constitution and rule of law and are destroying our economy and destroying our country and our morality, or not? That's your decision this election period. Keep in mind, I am the only candidate who publicly pledged that I will vote for that new leadership team. The ones there have got to go. We've got to replace them with true conservatives in the mold of Ronald Reagan, Newt Gingrich, and the folks that we've admired in the past. Thank you all for letting me be here tonight. God bless each of you, and have a safe trip home.
Diane Vaughn.
Van,
I'm sorry, Diane Van.
Well, I'm going to disappoint Rush Limbaugh today. I'm going to say that I'm interested in impeaching not only Barack Obama, but also Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi. I think they're all equally guilty of following the Communist Manifesto and not the Constitution of the United States. It's been attacked for the Democratic Party for many years, and I tacked that back in my little book, which you're welcome to have a copy of. But in the event, I do represent not only the Republican leadership replacement, but also the Democratic the leadership. And I know this is hard to take. The House is usually only going to impeach in the event that there's been bribery or treason or something like that. But we have something major going on in this country today. And it needs to be acknowledged, it needs to be addressed by Congress. And that's the House's responsibility to bring impeachment, and it's the Senate's to judge it. And I know to even think about it or talk about it is overwhelming. And I know that we want to win the Senate back no matter what. So, but that is what I would do in the event I was elected. I would work for this district to have that Savannah Harbor deepened. I would work to make sure that everything that was meant to be done the last 10, 12 years gets done. It should be done in 2 years' time, really. Okay, thank you very much. Thank
And
you.
Eugene Yu.
End of the day, this election is all about you. Look around. We all look different. Our differences, our diversity is the strength of America. We live in a great nation. We all have a lot to be grateful for. And the human nature is not always filled with love and understanding for those who are
And you know, I may look a little different than you. I talk a little different than you. And I have a South Carolina accent. But I am same American like you. I love Georgia like you. I am proud to be an American like you. Don't ever underestimate John Barrow. Like I told you before, this election is very important. The you folks, stay away from all this buddy system. Pick the right candidate who can beat the John Barrow for once for all. 25 years ago, we have President Ronald Reagan, and we have a Johnny Cash, and we have a Bob Hope. Today, we have Barack Obama president, and John Barrow is a 12th district congressman. Guess what? No cash, no hope. With your help, God's divine grace, I will restore the promise of America. And God bless each and every one of you. And God bless our 12th district. God bless Georgia. And may God continuously bless the United States of America. Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed the first half of tonight's debate. And I was going to say, Lawton, I'm going to bring Lawton back up here, but before I do, I want to say thanks for the opportunity to moderate this evening. Thank you to the candidates. Thanks to Ogeechee Technical. Got a couple more here. Ogeechee Technical College, thank you for hosting this fine event. Thanks to the City of Statesboro, Georgia's District 12, the Bullitt County Republicans. Want to make sure to also thank the sponsors, U.S. Senate candidate Jack Kingston, Heather Banks McNeil, court candidate for Bullitt County, and of course Jim Benton, who is a candidate for Bullitt County Commission. With that being said, thanks again. I'm going to turn it over to Lawton.
I just want to take just a moment to to recognize a few elected officials that are with us here tonight. We have one statewide elected official, our Republican representative on the Public Service Commission, Lauren Bubba McDonald. Luckily, I know we have our district attorney, Richard Malley. We have another state representative with us here tonight. Is he still here? Kevin Cook. I'm missing the elected officials. All right. On the Republican Party side, we have with us here tonight Brad Hughes, our political director for the state Republican Party. We also have with us Jeff Brown, who's been over the 12th district, running the office out of Augusta. Jeff, you in here?
He's out.
Oh, he's out. He's in the back. And these debates just don't happen by accident here in the Bullitt County Republican Party. We have some great people. George Sterling, Deborah Herr, Reed Durr, Jim Benton. I'm going to miss somebody, and I apologize for that. But we're so thankful for the hard work that they put in behind the scenes. Two quick announcements. The Georgia Republican Party is looking for precinct chairs here in Bullitt County. We have 16 voting precincts here. If you're interested in being a precinct chair for Bullitt County, if you'll see Jeff Brown, he's in the back with a red hair and blue shirt. Also, if you're not interested in being a chair, but you're interested in learning about some of the technology that the Georgia Republican Party has, after this debate, for just a few moments, he's going to show you some of the new technology available to Georgia Republicans. And finally, this Wednesday, April the 2nd at 5 o'clock, Chairman Reince Priebus of the Republican National Committee will be having a conference call for precinct captains and chairs for our area. So if you're interested in doing that, Jeff Brown in the back is the best person to get a hold of. With that, again, thank you to Geechee Technical College. They've been such a wonderful host for us here. They did a wonderful job. We will get with them about the chairs, but other than that, it is a wonderful facility. Thank y'all very much, and y'all have a wonderful night.